Hi, my name is Emily Ainelli of T-Girl Angel, and I'm very comfortable and happy as I see myself now in the mirror. I'm starting to really feel like the whole process of transitioning has really made a world of difference for me psychologically, emotionally, and I've never felt happier. When I look at myself now in the mirror, I see a girl, and that's what I've always felt in my heart. Transitioning is very uh, difficult in so many ways. The first reality when you embark on transitioning is that your life will definitely change, and you have to be equipped to handle all that comes in your decision to transition. Um, you know, if we lived in a perfect world, well, we could be our true selves. We could live and just be natural and expressive of how we truly feel. But we live in a world that does not really understand what it's like to be different. I'm not condemning the world, society, or people, but I do feel somewhat uh, left out in so many ways because, when you are very alone and depressed as a result of how you feel about yourself, and you feel that it would be much better if you were able to express that side of you. I don't understand why there is a like a value system that we live in where you have to conform. It doesn't really make sense to me personally. I think society's standards are way out of date, and they don't really truly understand what people like myself go through who struggle with their gender identity. I always lived in the closet. I could never go out in public dressed like a girl, even if I wanted to. That was just the way life was for me. And I grew up in a whole different generation. I grew up in the early 1960s and 70s as a teenager. So, my only introduction to, I didn't even ever hear of the word transgender. Actually, the very first uh, experience that I had with the feelings that I was going through was with the tennis player who was also a world renowned surgeon, Dr. Renee Richards. Um, I remember reading her story and I was captured by it because that was who I was. And I always heard the term transsexual, not transgender, but transsexual. And I truly felt, as a 13-year-old boy, that I was a transsexual girl. But I couldn't do anything about it. The only thing I could do was learn and do research and reading. And I read about a lot of people. I read about Caroline Kasi, who went by the modeling name of Tula, who was also another transsexual woman, Dr. Renee Richards and Caroline Kasi Tula, had surgeries to become women. And I also remember reading about another transsexual from a much earlier generation who was actually a GI. Um, I'm trying to remember her name, but she was gorgeous, and I believe that she was the very first publicized male to female transsexual. Um, they even did a movie. Oh, Christine Jorgensen, that was her name. So I had these three transsexual women that I read about their stories. Dr. Renee Richards, Caroline Kasi, also known as Tula, and Christine Jorgensen, and they were my role models. Um, I just felt like that was who I was, and I always knew in my heart that I was supposed to be a female. I didn't know how I would ever achieve that, and I didn't, to be honest, I didn't even know if I would ever have that opportunity to live as a female. I knew in my heart that was what I was supposed to be, but life is very unpredictable and you don't know. And I was struggling. I had to deal with all of my family problems. I had a mom and dad who I loved. They were truly very special to me. But unfortunately, they had their own personal problems. My mother had struggled with depression, and my dad as well. Also, depression and uh, his job pressures. My mom was raising my two sisters and I until we completed high school. And then she went back to work as a secretary. And it was something she did. Actually, she actually went back when I was in high school still. And they were instrumental, both my parents, in helping me to go on to college. But my dad worked in a job that was very difficult. He was an iron worker, and he saw tragedy in his business. He actually witnessed someone fall to their death while working on the Verrazano Bridge. He was actually caught right in the middle of it, where he was desperately trying to hold on to his coworker who lost his balance on the catwalk. And my dad was only like 140 pounds at the most, and his friend weighed well over 200 pounds. And my dad just couldn't hold on, and my dad also had damaged hand from a previous related work accident where he lost two fingers and part of his thumb, and he just didn't have the grip to hold on, and he was almost ready to go over himself. Uh, but it was lucky that another ironworker saw what was happening, and he went and grabbed my dad. But as he grabbed my dad could not hold on to his friend, and he witnessed him fall to his death. And that was in about the year 1963. And it was a very difficult time for my dad. And as a result, he started drinking, and that was his escape. So both my parents had their struggles. So I was very much in the closet, and I couldn't tell people. I couldn't be who I was. The only time I could was when I cross-dressed. I felt that was my only chance to express who I was. And I started that at a very young age. I was only 3 when I started wearing my sister's dresses. She was younger than I, but I was fortunate to find a dress that fit, and I was overjoyed. It was something that I felt very happy in, and it made me feel very happy about myself. And I knew right then and there that I was a girl. But how do you tell people? How do you express it? You know, I lived in the closet basically all my life. I wanted to transition as early as the age of 16 from male to female. I started reading about transsexualism with those 3 individuals I mentioned, Dr. Renee Richards, Caroline Kasi, and um, I forgot her name already. She'll come back to me. But I wanted to transition at a young age, and I was very much influenced and impacted. Oh, Christine Jorgensen, of course, the pioneer of transsexualism, Christine Jorgensen. And I also read about Harry Benjamin, who actually founded the standards of care for transsexuals, and he laid out a plan on how transsexuals should be treated and guidelines in assessing who is transsexual. And I read it and was very uh, captivated by it because I wanted to make sure that I fit all the criteria. And as I read through it, it really did register with me that I was in fact transsexual because all of the guidelines was me. Everything that I read, I could relate to. So I knew indeed that I was transsexual. But the irony is that now when I identify myself as transgender because it seems transgender encompasses all of the identities within the gender identity spectrum, inclusive of, I believe, transsexualism. In all honesty, I would say that wired, my brain wiring is that I am a true transsexual. And I've taken those quizzes, and there's a Cognati test, I think it's called, Cognati. And, you take these tests with a grain of salt. But I think the Cognati test is more, in my eyes, I'm not going to overly generalize it, but in my eyes, I took it to heart when I got the results after taking that. And I took it multiple times, and I got the same results that I was considered a true transsexual, and that I was most likely uh, needing to learn about what I could do to help myself. And I think it's important that if you identify as transgender or transsexual, that you really do your studying and homework, because it's very important to find your happiness. Um, I'm so happy now that I'm transitioning, that I'm living the life as I've always felt inside as a female. And it's priceless. I love my family. I'm married. I have a son, and they mean everything to me. But I need to be happy too. And for me, transitioning to become a woman is my salvation, my true happiness. My son is my priority, and I need to be happy too and do the best I can. I love you guys. I wish I could do a longer video next time.